What's happening? Christian Hellmers here. I am Raw or Die on Twitter and Instagram. Have you ever thought about trying to become a professional gambler? I mean, literally earning your sole income betting on horses or fantasy football or poker or sports betting. Well, my whole life has been designed around betting on horses, and I thought it'd be really rad to create a YouTube channel around what is it like to live this way. Now, I've been betting on horses since I was 20, so about 20 years now, and I won the World Series of horse racing back in 2014. I finished second in the largest cash tournament in the country on horse racing, the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge, back-to-back years, 2011, 2012. And I've also won so many tournaments. I won the Del Mar tournament in 2017, finished first and second on two different entries. I won Santa Anita tournament this year in 2018. Finished with 69.69 on purpose, starting with only $300. Made 30 times my bankroll. I won the Santa Anita tournament back-to-back years in 2016 and 17 too. So I take this game very serious. I wanted to create this YouTube channel basically so that I could share what it's like to be a professional gambler, to teach them the basics along the way, do a lot of interviews with some really cool cats. For instance, this first episode is going to be all about interviewing Nisan Gabbay, who won the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge for $500,000 last year on one of the biggest scores in all of horse racing's history. And also with one of his closest friends, one of my closest friends, Kevin McFarland, who won the Kentucky Derby Betting Challenge for about $300,000 last year. And so basically we're just going to dive into the lives of professionals. And it's not just horse racing. We're going to do a lot of stuff around horse racing, but we're going to talk about poker, fantasy football, sports betting, the whole gamut. And we're going to have a lot of fun because we're going to get diverse. We're going to keep it raw and rough, unrefined, organic, edgy. This is not a tutorial on betting, but what it is who are these people and how do they do what they do? And so it's my job to kind of introduce you to my relationships, take you through all kinds of walks of life that come across my path in sports and not necessarily in sports, but add a lot of value into helping me become my best. And when I say my best, I mean integrating with the best practices so that I make the best calculated risks I can, get my body right, my mind right, and make sure that I'm at my highest potential. So anyway, it's going to be a lot of fun. I hope you enjoy this first episode. We're going to go into why the media tried to destroy one of the biggest scores of all time in the history of horse racing. And we're also going to talk about a little bit of an altercation that happened at the Kentucky Derby with two cool cats, Nisan and Kevin. I hope you enjoy. And as always, keep it raw or die trying. That's the only way you know you're living. time to talk to Kevin McFarland, a Pick Six boy. Let's see what's going on. Hey, what's up, good people? What are we doing? Hey, what are you doing, Kev? All right, what are you doing, Nisan? You betting for tomorrow?
Yeah. Well, trying
Judy wants some
to chase this jackpot pick six.
The true Pick Six boy.
I've been so close to this jackpot pick six. That's my weight.
So Kevin, what are you smiling about?
Long day.
Are you happy to actually get everything off your chest to find a...
You know, I didn't want this day to come, but it's gone on long enough. I mean, these guys are. I'll stand up. These guys are. These guys are spreading some false stuff and creating some controversy, and you know.
You're talking about Jonathan and Peter, right?
Yeah, I mean Jonathan and Peter, and it's just gone on long enough. I mean, I'm tired of just being trolled. I'm tired of the lies being spread. I'm tired of.
Why do these guys care so much about us? I don't get it, dude.
They're jealous. I mean, I said it when I started. I mean, sore losers, you know. I mean, or jealousy. I mean, it has to be jealousy, and it has to be that we just don't pay them any time anymore. I mean, they're really hurt by that, but I mean, I just don't understand how, you know, somebody could twist our words and try to run an investigation against us, and write some false things and cover things in a very biased way and think that, you know, someone's gonna be cool with it, you know. So there's no love lost. There's no bridge to be, you know, built. I mean, they're dead to me.
So are we saying that there's officially a rivalry between the Pick Six boys and Jonathan Kitchen and Pete Fornatale? Is it just lines drawn in the sand?
No, there's no rivalry. I mean, you have to win to have a rival. I mean, basically.
What if he wins a tournament and gets disqualified again? Is it a rivalry
with his own
then?
Money or with?
Well, that's a good question. I guess it's probably never going to be his money, so it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah, I mean, it depends how much DRF pays him.
Yeah, I mean, it will be interesting to see if he shows up at more of these cash games now, because he's probably on his high horse after finishing third via DQ.
I guess his investors have a little bit of money this time, so maybe he can parlay that into another couple of cash tournaments for the remainder of the year.
Yeah. So you're not going to play in this thing, right? You're this
No,
weekend.
no.
You're against the hybrid cash game / mythical.
I guess not only am I against it, I'm against you two playing. So that kind of shows that we're not completely in the same.
I won 5K.
Yeah, I don't care.
I have to fucking play.
I wouldn't even play it in the qualifier. That's where I stood. So, you know, I hope you guys win, because it'll be interesting to see what they. How they cover it. I mean, you won and they said nothing. So, I mean, you win their tournament again, and I'd love to silence them again, because, you know, they're never going to write anything positive about us. You know, they're going to say things like they've been saying, you know, they're going to be at the top of the leaderboard as long as they play by the rules that everybody else plays by, or, you know, they're good, but, you know, they think they're much better than they are, and, you know, there's just no place for that. I mean, I just thinking about it, the outrage I have is really not just, again, they try to make it about me, and it's really about, you know, since 1990s, me, you, and Nisan, nobody has supported the sport more than us three. Played in every BCBC, I played in every Del Mar tournament, I've played in every Belmont tournament, I played in every KDBC tournament, I played.
Well, wait, hold on. You didn't play in the first KDBC. We both skipped it.
Did skip that. That's right. So we played we played in almost every major cash tournament since 1990. Nobody can say that but me, you, and Nisan. So to get disrespected, it's we feel like it's disrespect. We feel like we've paid our dues. We've won our share. You know, nobody and they say we're okay and good and all that, but then, you know, to turn this around on us, that we had any type of nefarious or, you know, changed the game and created some unfair rules to our advantage, is just it's distasteful. It's not something I would wish on any of my enemies, even my closest enemies. I mean, the way we've been treated since Breeders' Cup. So we're going to continue to stay away from the press, create a different avenue to communicate, and let our play do the talking. And that's clearly,
That's the best way.
That's the best strategy. That's what we try to do. And then I somehow got brought into this again with some, silly. It wasn't even silly. I mean, it was very serious. I mean, it was, it was an attack, and but it didn't need to be. Again, I don't even know why this drama is being created. We should just keep our distance and let bygones be bygones, and understand there's nothing to chop it up. There's nothing to chop up. Nothing.
All right, so it's been way too long. I have not started a YouTube channel for all kinds of reasons. It's time. And one of the first things I want to do is let you set the record straight on a few things. First of all, with whatever went down at Derby. So what the hell happened in Kentucky?
Yeah, man, I brought you guys all here together to make sure that people know this is not a Kevin McFarland thing, okay? It's not me versus Jonathan. It's not me versus Peter. It's us versus Peter and Jonathan and everything they've done since Breeders' Cup till now, right?
I tend to agree, because those two guys have done all kinds of weird things in my eyes, in terms of the way they communicate, the false information they spread on a regular basis, the way they try to change rules.
We've stayed silent just because I want to take the high road.
Oh, I'm with it.
Catch myself in a fight. I'm sober. Jonathan Kitchen is drunk, infringing in my space. Todd and Judy were with me. The false story that came out over the last week. I mean, something has to be said at this point. So I brought Judy and Todd to talk about the story, and then I want you guys to talk about some of the stuff that they continue to accuse us about, right? That is just not true.
Yeah, it's ludicrous. So, like, what happened? What's this deal all about?
We were coming down the escalator, and I turned around and I saw Todd talking to this guy who was absolutely aggressive and like yelling. Well,
so we're talking about Jonathan Kitchen. That's his?
Yeah, Yes.
Okay.
And he absolutely was aggressive at the beginning. This is a long escalator, and he's going back and forth.
He wasn't aggressive at the beginning.
At the beginning, a little bit he was, and then you talk
because
him down.
I talked to him.
Right, and he was agreeing at the bottom of the escalator. Then you sit around, and his friend was patting you on the back, hitting you with the high five, and then Kevin comes off the escalator, and he just flipped and completely started screaming at Kevin.
Well, this guy doesn't like Kevin. He's already said that many times.
I have no idea.
So when he flipped, what did he do?
Screaming and started calling him awful things.
Like, what do you call him? What did he say?
F you effing P word, like, well, a lot of things. And
Okay.
pointing and screaming, and his friends were pulling at him, and you were trying to, oh man, it was not good. And Kevin was not doing anything because our friend had, encouraged him to stay away from it.
I'm not surprised, to be honest, that he would try and start a fight with you.
Well, it started out because we were up in the table, in which Kevin we got us a table for both days, up in the whatever section where millionaires were or whatever we were, and we were at the table. We're getting ready to leave, and all of a sudden Jonathan and his whole entourage come up. They're getting free booze. They're sitting there. We're trying to walk out the escalator to leave, and they're just sitting there by the exit. And Kevin, all of us are at the table. So I take it upon myself because they're just loitering there. I'm like, I walk out there, and he's kind of just sitting by the exit, and I go, Kevin, I said, Jonathan, I said, what's your problem with my friend Kevin? He goes, what do you mean problem? I have no problem with him, he has a problem with me, this and that. And then I said, listen, both you guys are good for the game. I said, he stirs it up, you stir it up. You guys are doing this competition, the handicapping contest, it brings media, it brings attention to it, it's good. And he goes, well, I want to sit down with him, blah, blah. I'm like, there's nothing to sit down with. I said, he played his game his way, you play it your way. And then we're walking down the escalator. And as he's walking, I'm walking. I wasn't in front of him. I didn't make him stop. He turned around and just kept talking to me. We were on the 4th floor, 4 flights of elevators down. I was behind him, and he kept talking to me as I'm walking down there, and I kept talking to him, and then finally we get down there, and he's like, what's your name? I said, hey, I'm Todd. We shook hands. He goes, no, you got a point. To be honest, he's not even that bad of a guy. At least I was thinking of it. We had a nice conversation, and he was nice, and all. I wasn't. I thought we were having a nice interaction.
We thought everything was fine.
Because she was with me, he had another guy with him. Then we start walking out, you get down the escalators, And you start walking out to the exits, which is like another 20 steps. We start walking out, and then all of a sudden Kevin comes out, and Jonathan's walking the other way. Then he sees Kevin, and he runs like a pit bull, like 20 steps to the escalator to start yelling at him. And he starts yelling back, and they start going forward, and then we have an older gentleman that's with Kevin in our group, and then all of a sudden people from his group, and all of a sudden the drinks thrown on our, guys in his mid-60s face, a girl, was probably in her 20s, throws a drink on our friend, and all of a sudden it got way out of hand, and they start yelling at each other. But then all of a sudden we're sitting there going, what the heck's going on? That's why I think it's laughable that Jonathan says that I was stalking him or doing something. I mean, we were in a table that Kevin had for 2 days in an area of the track that you can't get to, that you have to pay a decent amount of money to be in this area, and you have to have special tickets to be there. It's your free food and free alcohol. He doesn't drink, and
I asked you I had a huge group of 30 people. I didn't want to get in an altercation. I asked you, Todd. I mean, he's standing at the door.
Right.
I said, Todd, you know the story. Just try
and
to.
I walked over there to him,
out.
and I go, hey, Jonathan. I said, what's your issue with Kevin? And he goes, Kevin, he's like, well, I'm like, he's a good friend of mine. I'm like, I don't understand the issue. He goes, I just want to sit down and talk with him. We need to sit down and figure this out. And I'm like, what's there to figure out? I said, they won a tournament. I said, he could have 50, 100 people behind him. I'm like, we're going back and forth. I'm like, you've made bets. You try to act like you've made the only bet that you never had any partners or backers or whatever. But I said, regardless of it, salt and pepper, oil and water. I said, you both are good for the sport, this handicapping contest. I said, you guys are good for it. We kept going back and forth, and we're taking these escalators down. Jonathan's in front of me. I wasn't in front of him. He kept turning around. If he didn't want to talk to me, he could have kept his mouth silent and kept his head silent. He was engaging. We were having a conversation. Now, Judy said, we weren't really arguing. I mean,
he was
like
kind
saying
of
little
hot
props.
at the top, but then he started cooling off.
But regardless, we're having a conversation.
Yeah.
He's agreeing. We're going back and forth. Keeps wanting to. I want to have a talk with Kevin. I said, no need to have a talk. But I'm like, give him respect. He'll give you. He needs to give you respect. And I come back and forth. I'm like, seems like you're a decent guy. Kevin's a decent guy. I mean, and I was way down. Then he turns around. And he introduces himself. I give him my name, and we shake hands. And then from the escalator down, there's like 20 feet where you have to walk outside the building, and we start walking outside the escalator at least 10 feet. And Jonathan's walking the other way with his group, and then because Kevin was staying behind, and it was her and I, and then all of a sudden, Kevin and a couple other friends of ours come down, and then Jonathan runs like 10 feet back to Kevin, and they start yelling, and Kevin's yelling, you're bad for the game or whatever, and Jonathan says, both of them, maybe they're going back, you're an asshole.
Well, I want to say, I don't regret anything I said. I mean, honestly, I was just getting called some vulgar things that literally he was drunk, he was going crazy.
But we were having
and again, all I wanted to do at that point is just, you know what, he's going to come at me, and I just want to tell him, he is ruining the game. I mean, we'll talk about that. But he also has done some very hypocritical things, which, we'll talk about too. I mean, there are things that I got off my chest. The only thing I'll apologize is I call him, which I don't want to drop to his level and call him names. So I call him the people's chump. Guess I apologize for that.
Right.
That's the one thing I might apologize for. But, I mean, he hasn't really won anything. I just state the facts. And again, this is a guy that is instigating with me, goes on a podcast and reverses it and says, we're the ones that instigate.
And he says we're aggressive. We had an older gentleman that was in his mid-60s, maybe 60 high. But regardless, Jonathan had a friend, a young gal, who throws a drink in his face. So if anything, they're the rowdy group. We were thinking, that's why I'm listening to him tell a story. It's that anything's a totally opposite of the story. Yeah. But it seems like every story he keeps saying is far from the truth. It's whatever benefits him.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I got escalated when somebody from his group threw a full drink into the oldest guy in my group.
Correct.
And hit him in the face. Okay? At that point, I mean, I was having a conversation, was going back and forth. That kind of raised the level. And again, maybe Jonathan doesn't remember that part. I don't know, because again, I was sober, he was drunk, right? And I mean, I just don't see why I have to talk to him to clear this up.
That's why
he filed an investigation against us. Okay, he was part of the 11 people that wrote a letter. Clearly, I don't see eye to eye with him on rule changes, on the way he conducts himself at the track. I try to take the high road. That's literally what I try to do. Now, somehow, it's a Kevin McFarland versus Jonathan Kitchen thing. And I don't think that's the case.
So you kept calling him bad for the game. Why
and
is
I
he
am.
bad for the game?
So bad for the game. So, I mean, Nisan, he's the nice one that never talks, but, he gets called out. Case in point, on that podcast, Peter claims that, he wanted to get Nisan's side of the story. That's the farthest thing from the truth. And the truth, I'll let Nisan speak, because we've never spoke about it. We tried to tell our side of the story, and it didn't happen. And Peter should know why. But now we'll know.
Yeah, I think first of all, I felt very strongly that Pete had an agenda the whole time. So he interviewed us, but he would take things out of context, twist our words in order to tell the story that he wanted to tell rather than the truth. And so that was the first thing that really upset us about the way that Pete, covered the Breeders' Cup betting challenge last year.
And this is on the heels of you making the biggest score in the history of horse racing, betting $50,000 in the last race, winning $500,000. And the story is that Kevin and Nisan, close friends, happen to be betting together in some weird way that might be against the rules, when he's written stories about how partnerships are a good thing for the game and so forth. And
even worse than that, what I took offense to was the insinuation that we changed the rules in order for us to exploit the rules and take advantage of it.
Right.
We've been playing in these tournaments 20 years. We've been pushing the industry to do good things, and all we always do is look out for the betterment of the players. We're always looking out for the players, and everything that we ever suggest is for the betterment of the players. So it is super insulting to me personally for somebody to say, you changed the rules of this so that way you could exploit it and basically cheat people out of their money. It's like ridiculous.
Right.
It's a ridiculous thing to say. It's a ridiculous thing to publish. It's awful that DRF gives him the platform to publish falsities.
yeah. Well, he's not a journalist anymore. He's a marketeer, because he couldn't be a journalist because he's not being factual.
Let me say
How much
this.
does it get on the race?
And just to be clear then, well, why would I be upset about all of this? This was a very special tournament for me. We grew up playing in Del Mar. This was the first year that Del Mar hosted the Breeders' Cup. We wanted to win this tournament more than anything. I played flawlessly through the last two races, absolutely crushed it, took $3,000 and turned it into $190,000 in two races, and it was awesome. It was the best feeling in the world. That's what they should have been writing about, because, Todd, you're an athlete. I was never an athlete. To feel like, hey, you're on the biggest stage and you knock it out of the park and you hit the Grand Slam, that's what it felt like to me. It was an awesome experience. Then to have them go and tarnish that by spreading lies after the fact to make me feel like I have to defend myself
We had to hire an attorney.
is absolutely ridiculous for them to do that. And so what is our problem with them? Our problem is, until you apologize for what you did wrong to us, don't ask us to be hunky-dory with you, because we're not. We're not ever going to be cool and feel like nothing happened when you basically try to ruin one of the best experiences for us in 20 years of playing tournaments.
And how many hours have you put into horse racing?
And take some responsibility for your actions when you do that. You were wrong. Everything that you published was wrong. Everything was proven by the investigation, showed that you were wrong, yet there wasn't one apology printed. There wasn't any effort to show that, hey, this was actually not the case. So basically, it amounted to you accusing us.
Still in the last podcast.
And continuing to accuse us in the last podcast of wrongdoing. It's like, hey, you know what? There should be consequences for when someone wrongfully accuses you. You can't get away with that in this world. And too many people get away with it all the time. Just everywhere in the world right now, people just accuse people, ruin reputations, and there's no consequence. And that's my problem.
And Nisan wanted to speak up, and we just wanted to take the high road. Like, I advised high road. They get on their podcast and they rip people and they just make fun of people, and it's disgusting.
Well, so literally, I read the email that you sent to DRF and Peter, Fornatel, and you spoke your truth, and you defended what you did, and you addressed issues like with Jonathan, how he took a penalty on day one, and yet ends up writing a letter talking about the impropriety of the way you guys played this tournament. And then
his questions, Nisan's answers.
Yeah, so Peter sent the questions, you responded, and then ultimately,
Well,
it was turned down.
let me back it up even there. At first, all I wanted to do was submit a letter to the editor, to DRF, so I could write my own column in my own voice and just print it and get my side of the story out there.
Are you serious?
That was the first
That
thing
was your
I
first
that was
thing?
the first thing I asked for.
Because I met Hartig in Florida. He said that we could do that. So that shows that Peter Fornatale didn't even...
Yeah, so Pete told me
he's a wild candidate.
Pete told me that his editors would not allow it, would not allow the letter to editor be printed. He said, but hey, maybe I could do a Q&A.
So he's totally full of it because Hartig did not tell me anything of that sort.
That I don't know, but I have no reason not to believe you. Instead, Pete suggested, hey, let's do a Q&A, and his Q&A, the questions that he posed, were very, pointed to try to say that we had done something wrong, and that was fine. I tried to refute and describe everything that was said, and we got very close to publishing something, and ultimately I had said that unless I get to say what I want to say, I don't want anything published, and ultimately it was censorship. Basically, they didn't want me to be able to say what I wanted to say, and so for that reason, nothing was ever published. So to say like, hey, we couldn't get anything out there, I didn't come on the podcast, it was because I insisted, after having my words twisted previously by DRF, that I need to have everything that I want to say be said the way I want to say it. And if you can't do that, then I don't want to be part of your media.
How were your words twisted by DRF? Like, what did you guys were texting Peter before, right? A little bit after the way.
Yeah. So Peter would always would take things out of context and not follow up to ask what that meant, and just run with a story that he would want to run with, or a viewpoint. For example, he had interviewed, and one of the things he pointed out on the podcast was, hey, Kevin said that, we changed the game after a post-interview, after we just won the Breeders' Cup Classic, right? And so what was that about? Well, Kevin was excited. We just won this huge tournament. And basically the idea to change the game is that Kevin had won the Kentucky Derby tournament. I had won the Breeders' Cup tournament. I had set the highest score ever in the Breeders' Cup. We, showed between yourself and Christian had won 2 tournaments that year. Yeah. Kevin had won the major tournament. I'd won another major tournament. So collectively between us, we were kicking butt.
40% of all tournaments were won by us last year.
Yeah,
and
cash games. And so to say to people, everyone will always say, oh, you can't win at the races. And we're pretty much definitive proof that you can, because our success being repeated in these tournaments is really game-changing. And that's what Kevin meant by changing the game. It was game-changing what we've done.
On your home turf.
And Pete,
on our home turf. And then to somehow twist that and say it was an admittance that we changed the rules of the tournament and run with that as a story.
He didn't just run with it. So for the public, he didn't just run with it, okay? After the tournament, I started getting these texts. Pointed questions like, hey, how'd you Nisan play? How'd you do it? And they were different than a regular interview. And my radar started going up, especially when he started slamming. And this is the evidence that I gave to the investigator. It probably was the thing that was the most damning for proof that there was a bias at DRF, that they wanted to see a disqualification by us. They claim whatever they say on there. They say, we shouldn't have been disqualified. But they wrote an investigation to get us disqualified, okay? They went after Tim Schramm on 3 different texts. If he doesn't get fired, I'm going to shit a brick. Literally, it's his fault that this happened. It's his fault. All this stuff about Tim Schramm, who's an unbelievable man, right? So I started picking up on this, and now they have a problem with GP Gary, right? Oh, the rules are confusing, right? Oh, it's on and on and on from these tournament directors that all you got to do if you have a problem with the rules is ask, right?
Yeah,
that's all you got to do.
Yeah.
But he had all these pointed questions. He went after Schramm. He specifically had a vendetta against him, right? I turned all those texts over. He says we had a falling out. Wouldn't you have a falling out if a guy was interviewing you and using the information to build a story to try to disqualify you? He never once asked me, what do you mean by that quote? You changed the game. He knows what I meant about that. Anybody that's smart, that's followed us for this much time, it's at Del Mar. Biggest score ever. I've talked to him about all of us having the capabilities of getting that score, which, by the way, nobody still says it's the greatest accomplishment of all time. They say he only bet 2 races. And then Jonathan Kitchen gets disqualified for betting only 3 races in the KDBC. I mean, this is a big joke, right? Like, I mean, this is the
Classic.
biggest joke in the world,
Absolutely
right?
classic.
Like, you got a guy who basically is promoting and forcing people to get more mandatory bets. And the one guy that bets the least amount in the KDBC is the guy lobbying for that. I mean, think about that for a second.
And is he using his own money?
No. He's using other people's money.
Rashard
right?
Lewis, right?
Right.
Supposedly
Well,
is the guy who's bankrolling the whole guy. He
was
doesn't
there.
have any money.
He was there. He was a nice guy. He was the one guy that wasn't in the altercation. You know, I don't. But he's an investor, right?
Yeah.
Jonathan, I don't think there's a problem with that, right?
Yeah.
But he
It's
comes,
hilarious that he comes across like he's a big
comes
gutter.
off like that, you know, and I really have a problem with that. That, you know, going in this KDBC, it was a lot. You know, I heard Jonathan wants you to make sure you got to bet more than 2 races, or make sure you got to bet more than 3 races, and then he goes and does the same thing. Same thing.
Super hypocrite.
Has a problem with the penalty.
Major hypocrite.
30 or 40 people took a penalty in day 1. He was one of them.
Right?
Right?
And that's another good point, though, is this whole notion of the penalty. Peter writes an article that says 90% of the people didn't know about the penalty.
Right.
I have talked to at least over 40 or 50 people that knew about that rule.
Right.
Right? And yet, because not everyone takes the penalty, they don't know the rule, it is very difficult, and this is why I give you even more respect, to pass races and not bet money and wait and take a deduction to sit and bet a horse like Talismanic at 14-1 from Europe that you really don't even know, and you were that confident. And so that deserves even more respect. And yet it's, you know, it's totally like ostracized because of, you know, you're taking advantage of the rules. If you don't like anything else on the day, you're a disciplined handicapper or professional horse player, as we are.
Well, and this is a philosophical difference that I must have with Pete and Jonathan, which is this idea that you need to bet as many, a lot of races in order for it to count as a handicapping tournament. And I think that's probably the biggest problem, is that we don't view this thing as a handicapping tournament. We view it as a betting challenge. It's about turning as much money as, creating the highest return on investment you can on that day. And however you choose to do it, whether it's putting all your bankroll on one race, congratulations to you. If you want to put all your bankroll on one race and turn it into the most money, that's great. If you want to bet 10 races and turn it into the most money, you're free to do that too.
Yeah.
So my whole view on this is let the player choose how they want to bet. It's their money. They need to learn how to bet money appropriately to make the most money possible if they're going to be successful. So let's not constrain it with all these rules that say you have to bet a minimum of 10 races, this amount of money, whatever it is that they want. I say no, simplify the rules. And that was the whole spirit of the Breeders' Cup rules, which were so good with the penalty system, was to basically say, hey, if you want to bet on one or two main things, you can do that. You're going to take some penalty points.
Yeah.
That Pete and Jonathan would then lobby for rule changes that are anti-player.
Yeah.
Literally anti-player.
Oh yeah, it's more chaos.
Their point is to say, oh, but the tracks, everybody knows these tournaments are about increasing turnover, so we need to have a minimum number of bets. Why does a player care how much turnover the track is going to get? It's your money.
Yep.
You should bet it however you want.
Right.
So that whole argument, I don't even understand it, but even if it were logical and true, there's more turnover when you let the player bet what they want to bet and don't force them to bet.
Tim Schramm
So
said that.
Tim Schramm said that. They've done studies on this, right? So give players more freedom to bet how much they want, when they want. That's what's going to increase turnover. So again, why are these people, why are Pete and Jonathan being the representative for players when they've been playing in these tournaments for just a few years? We've collectively been playing in them for 20 years.
Yeah. It's just,
Anything that, and so why are they the representative? This is actually probably the thing that, now that we're getting into it, that's what probably bothers me the most, is how they got this platform to supposedly be the voice of the players when they themselves aren't really players.
No.
And the people that they rallied for this letter to the Breeders' Cup, half of them didn't even play in the Breeders' Cup tournament.
Right.
So they literally got people to lodge a complaint, having not even put up their own money to bet.
Yeah.
In my world, if you don't put up your money, you have no vote.
Yeah.
You should have no voice.
Yep.
But that's not mentioned anywhere by Pete in the DRF letter. Who are these players? These players were NHC players, mythical players, who were largely upset that Mumi was going to get NHC Tour points by the way that he played in the Breeders' Cup, which is a whole separate issue. But it's kind of like, Again, why are these people the leading voice? Who has put them in charge? How did they get on the Breeders' Cup committee?
Yeah, well, it's this is horse racing at its finest, right? You've got an old boys network, and then you've got a small level of power, in, in these small hands of groups like the DRF and the Breeders' Cup, and NTRA, NHC, and there's not a lot of competition. And at the end of the day, these people are they're not looking at it through the eyes of what is going to lead to the highest level of growth. They're trying to keep their little fiefdoms intact, and they want to keep their jobs. They don't want to take risks, and they don't understand that what we're doing is remarkable, like truly remarkable. And I think that it's, I try to interview some players on Periscope to get some words out about how it's important to have partnerships, how it's good to have camaraderie, it's good to exchange. If you want to join in with your friends, bet together, great, go ahead. And the Gary Wests of the world, the people that have hundreds of millions, or let's just say tens of millions of dollars invested in horse racing, that could be tournament players, that could be adding to the growth of this sport, to the tournament sport, are not playing with us because of the Jonathan Kitchens of the world and the Pete Fornatells of the world, who continue to claim that the best way to run a tournament is to force players to bet a minimum amount of dollars in a certain context of races.
So I think, we're going at it here, clearly this was portrayed as a Kevin McFarland thing. Again, right? Like, I just want to make sure that, we're very passionate about the game, right? And just, they have the platform and we haven't had a chance to say what we wanted to say. And honestly, we just want to take the high road. And personally, we still would have took the high road. But
I was willing to let it all go, right, until this incident at the Derby.
Yep.
Right? This was
over the top.
It's over the top. The guy literally came at you in a violent rage.
Mm-hmm.
It's uncalled for.
And he can't even own his own behavior. He can't.
He doesn't remember it.
He claims he doesn't remember it.
Or he apologizes, said he had too many old Foresters.
Again, it's this lackadaisical, laissez-faire attitude towards.
Excuse.
Towards. Yeah.
I got disqualified because I didn't read the rules twice.
And an and
you
or.
guys take it serious.
And an
All
or.
three of you guys.
Oh, we do take it very seriously.
Very serious.
We're professionals.
You guys don't drink. You guys take it serious. You study.
Yes.
Yeah. And
I mean, you take it. That's why.
And then the platform of the guy that could promote us
Correct.
has the opportunity and chooses to twist my words, chooses to try to text with me to try to get evidence to build a case against us. This is literally what took place. And you have to think about it. You think about the tournaments that they promote. Nisan talks about the mythical. It's all about this World Series thing with definitely fake advertising that they're going to give away $1 million. And then
how do they get away with that?
I don't know.
They talk about millions of dollars, and
they don't even give it away.
They don't even give it away, and they don't even get to the
Don't even
numbers.
give it away.
It's somebody's got to sue them for this.
No. And then this whole thing is more about the Preakness tournament, which is a mythical tournament, right? Than the KDBC.
Well, it's a blend.
That's where a blend, yes. It's the largest live cash tournament, whatever funky marketing spin they're gonna put on it. The KDBC, okay, went down to 73 players. I was very frustrated by that, right? I was very frustrated that we went down. They talk about the sport going up, and I just don't want it to be seen as us, because it's not. We're here to promote the game. They're the ones that have the platform, and a lot of people are turned off by it, right? And so what I'd like to do is I'd like them, like Nisan said, I'd like them just to, you want to end this, or don't ask me to chop it up, apologize, and let's get back to freedom, right? In fact, if that really is, and clearly Jonathan wants to play that way, because he wouldn't have got disqualified. He wouldn't have lost $45,000 with freedom, okay? And I think he deserved that. I think the call to play that double, that's a great call. He should get $45,000 more, personally. I think that's the true result, right? But I guess this is the karma coming back saying, Jonathan, here's kind of, it makes me feel good, right?
Kevin, why do you think the numbers went down in the tournament? That people think that you guys are
No,
doing
it's
something?
no. It's the qualifiers that they removed because of some legal issues, so they dropped 30 or 25 players from qualifiers. Plus, it just, it's the negative publicity though.
I think it's the negative. I agree.
And it's not necessarily tied to us. It's just this whole notion that there's a problem with tournaments. There's a problem with cash games because people can bet, maybe multiple entries, or can be talking to their friends and coordinating.
Well, like
opinions.
my point is we even had the conversation with John. Like I didn't even know his bet, but to be honest, betting the last $3,000 you have on a 14-1 shot from Europe.
Yeah.
I mean, who's going to go to the track and have $13 in their or 13 or 3,000 in their pocket and going to go throw down on a Europe? I mean, I agree. You should get more credit saying, "Wow, that's a ballsy play."
Dude, balls of the
And
year.
they should be talking about, "Wow, you made that," instead of betting some, the favorite or what. Nothing against it. If some, I mean,
How do
there's
you
a
wanna do
story there, or even a story of how you win your tournaments, or I mean, that to me, I think that's if anyone who's not into the game or looking at it, going, "Wow."
Yeah, and again, for this, this was a golden marketing opportunity for racing. The play in the Breeders' Cup, it was actually all covered on film. So there's actually video footage of the Breeders' Cup Classic, the bets that I made, watching us and a huge group of friends celebrating, and that could have been used to promote the game and actually
Right.
grow the game and show what an awesome thing it was to place a big bet, to win a big bet, to see the excitement from all the friends. But of course, Pete and Jonathan and their group of people looked at that and ran with that as a reason to say, oh, there's something wrong here. We've got to investigate this. And so really scared the Breeders' Cup off. And so instead of producing this awesome segment, promoting the tournaments and promoting the camaraderie, they flipped it on their head and actually reversed it and made it into a bad story. And that's what actually hurt the growth, right? And so again, and why did they do that? In my view, it was for their own agendas. What are those agendas? Either it's because they want to promote the DRF tournament, or they want to promote fake money tournaments, mythical tournaments. They prefer the NHC. Maybe that's part of it. Maybe it's that they just hate Christian and Kevin. I don't know, because of other altercations. Whatever their agenda was, it was bad for the game.
Well, and also, like, to your point, hating Christian and Kevin, we told Jonathan we didn't want to talk to him.
No, I'm talking about before Breeders' Cup.
Yeah.
I'm talking even before Breeders' Cup.
No,
Okay.
we were cool.
Even
We were
before.
cool. We were
I'm
cool.
talking even before
Whoa,
Breeders'
whoa,
Cup.
whoa,
But, okay.
We were so cool that he congratulated you.
Oh, that's right. In a kind of snarky way, like, you're part of the team. I know you're getting money from them, aren't you? Kind of like, yeah. Well, I beat them in a tournament a couple weeks earlier that ended up costing them $1 million. So technically, if we're a team in betting in that way, why would I bet the same thing as them or whatever happened? Because we both moved up in the same race and happened to learn from similar styles of handicapping, and boom, that would be evidence to show that we're not colluding in any way. But the main point here, though, is why are they doing this? And I think, honestly, I don't even think they have it figured out why they do their slapstick, kind of off the cuff way of representing horse racing. I don't even think they've sat down and really done the thinking. Like, you're a consultant, you work for Accenture, you've been in Wells Fargo, worked a lot of big businesses. I've been a part of multiple startups. We know how to look at growth and risk. They don't understand for some reason that just because we're good doesn't mean we have an advantage other than just hard work. And there's something around the idea of trying to level the playing field by creating more chaos and creating, like, to your point about more mythical, that's appealing to them to potentially give them a better chance, or their tribe or their colleagues a better chance. They don't like to bet 5 or 10 grand down on a horse. It takes a lot of
Not their own money.
No, not their own money. Well, even
Jonathan had other people's money, so it was easier for him
it
with
was,
KDPC.
There you go.
I think he's bad for the game. I think he.
Why is he bad for the game, though?
Well, I'll let
You don't
Nisan
see
talk
this-
about that, because it's not just me. I mean, it's not my opinion, and it's,
So what does Nisan have to say about that?
Why he's bad for the game?
Yeah.
That's the question.
we're not bad for the game.
You
Why
know-
he's ruining? Why he's ruining the state
Cash-
of
the cash
tournaments and the
tournaments,
state of cash tournaments.
Yeah.
And since Breeders' Cup, we've gone through a period of time where a lot of people have been turned off, and I think a lot of it has to do with Jonathan and Peter.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with that. Our big thing is we've been playing in cash tournaments for 20 years. We love cash tournaments. And there's a group of tournament players that love mythical tournaments or fake money tournaments. And Jonathan is one of those guys, and Pete is really one of those guys. And, they're using their platform and their voice in the industry to basically turn cash tournaments into mythical tournaments, like what they've done with this upcoming Preakness tournament at Santa Anita, where, now the final score of the tournament is determined based on mythical bets. And, we just don't agree that that's good for the sport. We don't think it's good for tournament players. And so...
I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous that you literally bet real money, get to a certain point, keep your money, and then play with, Monopoly money to try to determine who wins the tournament.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think
it's absurd.
We've always said, and again, this is the difference between a handicapping tournament versus a betting challenge. Right? A betting challenge is about who can take X amount of money and turn it into Y amount of money, and if you can turn the most money, you should win. That's what betting at the races is about. Going to the races is about making money, betting. It's not some contrived, put $2 win place wagers, mythical wagers, and try to pick, whatever winners. Whoever can make the most money is the best, period. And that's what we should be teaching to the game, and we should be teaching new players that, hey, you've got to learn how to master betting and how to make money. And the more, rules and conditions that you put in there in order to try to turn it into a mythical tournament, it's doing a disservice. So, when Kevin says, hey, you're ruining the game, it's that you're changing the rules for the wrong reason, and it's hurting the tournament scene right now.
And they have a bias. DRF, they both work, they're both on a podcast. Peter works for DRF. Clearly they don't have cash tournaments, right? They cover these tournaments, and then they put a spin on these tournaments, and they basically sabotaged the Breeders' Cup and created this, this facade that there was so much corruption. Yes, what Eric Mooney did.
There's absolutely no doubt in my mind that there's a conflict of interest for Daily Racing Form with Breeders' Cup. Daily Racing Form is operating tournaments. They're trying to promote their big online mythical tournament. And to say that their coverage is not influenced by that fact, I think is absolutely false. And the fact that they don't really put out any disclaimers on that when they cover these events is a disservice. Their coverage of the Breeders' Cup turned very negative once Breeders' Cup had ended their relationship with DRF as a tournament operator. And it shows in the coverage. And again, it's kind of subtle if you're not in the industry and you haven't been following this for many years. But basically, they were just trumping up a story in order to make Breeders' Cup look bad when really there was no story.
Yeah, literally, you went through that, right? You had finished first. You got a letter written about you, who was circulated by Peter Fornatall. I've already had other players show me the emails.
Say he cheated.
And getting people to rally around this idea that Moomy did some things that are illegal, even though that's quite questionable. And then you guys get grouped into this group because of a lot of players that were uncomfortable with the optics of the two of you celebrating. But if it's a father and a son, a husband and a wife, no one's going to give a shit.
Two brothers who just won the KBC, which I think is great. Yeah. McGoey's won.
Nobody's
Peter writes an amazing article about them, right?
Yeah.
Amazing article, no cheating, no collusion, and I don't think there is any, right? That's what we want to find. All we're asking for is definition.
Well, these guys are totally talking to each other in some capacity, right?
But that's okay.
And again, I don't have a problem with it. I got beat back-to-back years by McGoey, who more than likely had other people involved in his little syndicate, and they were actually basically, probably trying to hedge or take advantage of the situation. I don't care. If you got more money and you're going to beat me, you can beat me. That's fine. But when I'm right, you're not going to beat me. And that's the way I play these tournaments. So I think that, to Nisan's point, trying to create a game that's not based on return on investment is not going to determine who the smartest, most skilled bettors in the world are. And that's where I think I get super angry, is that we're trying to shift the conversation into how many horses on an average weekend or races do we need to bet to prove what? That we can bet mediocre crap and do okay at that and then hit our big bet? Why can't we just bet what we love the most, slam it, and then on my eyes, that's going to attract the Gary Wests of the world, the owners that just want to pop in and not have to sit in a room with a bunch of old men for, God knows, 10 hours and get mediocre food and not be able to socialize and just stare at a computer screen. You can go in, make a bet or two, and leave.
I don't even really believe that mythical tournaments should be allowed. So I'm going to say that. I don't really like mythical tournaments.
Yeah, there's no money management strategy.
But if a mythical tournament should be allowed, that's fine for players that don't want to bet, that don't have the money to bet, and prefer to stay there in a low-stakes game. Go ahead, stay in those games. My problem is when you start taking rules from those games and try to apply them to high-stakes live money tournaments. It's like basically mixing poker rules across genres, like the analogy. Like, if there's a Texas Hold'em tournament, it's a Texas Hold'em tournament. Don't try to take, like, a cash game tournament rule and apply it to a Texas Hold'em all-in tournament. It's like, and that's what
makes it great.
And that's what they
For certain types of people.
That's what they want to do. They basically want to make it, like you said, even the playing field, try to make it easier for the little guy to be able to win a big tournament. And that's not what these things are.
But here's the irony. By creating more mythical tournaments, it doesn't make it any easier for anybody. All it does is it makes it more chaotic. So yes, an outsider may win in a mythical game because of we know the way the rules can work at the end of the game. Guys can end up betting with bombs and may just be betting on horses they never normally bet on. But it's not increasing people's chances. And it's absolutely absurd that when you look at NHC games and these mythical games, that the highest probability to actually be considered a great player, you're going to be winning at 2%, maybe 3%, maybe 4% if you're fucking amazing. But we're batting in the 10 to 30 percentile of the big cash games per year. We play them all, we support the industry, yet we have no voice. And that's why we need to do these things, and we need to do this more often, is because these two individuals do not represent the majority of people. And when the majority of people are quiet, and they're very calm,
it's true.
Cool, collected, they don't really care, they don't want to raise their voice, they don't want to cause conflict. And we've been trying to be cool, and we try to like have conversations about improving the rules.
Well,
but
why would they raise their voice when you've got people that will just smear their name?
Yeah, when you raise your voice. Yeah.
I mean, that's probably why.
Well, they want people to. This is their thing. Is they love to just butter people up and kiss ass and go through this whole idea of like trying to be your friend, this and that, and then they go, oh, he's not talking anymore. Well, I'm not talking to them anymore because I've seen how they've treated me. Peter wrote a story about me, about etiquette and tournaments, yet I was in filming a reality show. He didn't even call me, email me, ask me for anything, yet the whole article is about me and etiquette. And then I called him out on it, he can't even apologize on the phone. And so I think it's the time has come where we're going to have to continue to hold the bar very high.
It's us against the world.
And we're fine with it. We're
fine, but don't ask me to chop it up.
Yeah.
Don't ask me, like, I don't need an article written about me,
yeah.
right? And I sure as hell don't need to be on a podcast for 10 minutes when you instigated a fight. And then twist the story around, right?
And lie.
And basically lie.
Yeah, lie.
And lie and try to defame me, saying, I'm sober, you're drunk, and you're yelling vulgarities
I still
at me.
don't understand why it was even talked about on the podcast.
Exactly.
What?
All right, so, we really do need to hold these guys accountable, and I feel like, nobody else is willing to step up. And to be honest, most horse players are very humble, and we are naturally humble. Like, we don't really need to celebrate our wins. We don't need an article written about us when we win tournaments. It's fine. That's why I don't necessarily talk to Peter, because I don't want him to twist my words and play all these games. So I think that's what we'll do more often is, if we feel like, some points need to be aired, we'll do that through this vehicle. We'll go from tournament to tournament. We'll talk a little bit more casually about what's going on in the game besides tournaments and ways that we can help improve the game. There's a lot of momentum now with, sports betting and potentially the possibilities there. But at the end of the day, like this kind of journalism is just, not for us. So we're creating our own vehicle, our own platform, to your point, how, these guys have a platform. Who gave them the platform? Apparently DRF thinks that this is a good platform, and that's their prerogative, but we think we can do better, and we think other horse players should be listening to voices like ours, and that's why we encourage other horse players, I think, to be more vocal, and not just, go on Twitter and complain and be negative, but actually, be involved and, whether it's communicate with us through, Twitter, give us your email, or we'll create some threads, or we can even interview you. Like, I'm more than happy to interview a lot of horse players throughout the course of the year, other gambling experts too, outside of horse racing, because at the end of the day, horse racing is being run, this whole industry is run by people that don't bet professionally, that don't have the expertise and don't understand what is really going on in terms of the risk reward, and they all think it's a game of chance, and they all think it's just a little bit of luck. We've worked, well over 10,000 hours each on this game, and so, we're at the level because we've worked hard. And, now it's, it's just painful to see, the game being portrayed the way it is in these, mythical games, and it's just kind of this, I get lucky here, I get that, this, that, and it's about hard-earned cash and spending it wisely, being disciplined, pulling triggers in certain contexts, and ultimately telling stories about the camaraderie that we've built over the years and becoming best friends and seeing the ups and downs of all the stuff that happened in our lives. And that's interesting. Like most games, or you go to Vegas and you bet money and then it's over. You know, you win, you get lucky or not. Horse racing is deep, dude. You actually get to see what you're made of as a man. You get to know like your weaknesses. You see yourself suffer when you bet big money and walk away with nothing, and we've done that a lot. So I don't know, I have a lot of respect for this game, and I don't want this to come across as super negative, right? We want to clear this air and understand, let people understand why we don't talk to those individuals, and you know, we'll do what we do to try to, you know, represent us and represent horse racing. And you guys did a great job in the Breeders' Cup and again in KDBC last year, and you know, it's a shame that you guys got some negative publicity of that, and we're going to do our best to hopefully flip it. But I mean, is there anything else that you guys want to say about, you know, I mean, I know Nisan, you spent some time in getting the $1 million bonus kicked off at Del Mar. I know we helped, but you know, that was essentially your idea to just do a crowdfunding source. You know, that was great. I mean, I know your interests are in the players. Is there anything else that you would like to see done differently, or anything else you want to chime in on? Like,
It's probably a topic for another episode because there's so much that could be done, but I'll leave it with, you know, one parting thought for the players. You know, players who like live money tournaments, they should be vocal and make sure that you don't let this small group of mythical players change the rules and ruin the live money circuit, which is happening right now. So speak up to the tournament directors, tell them you don't agree with what the agenda is that Pete and Jonathan are pushing, and that way we keep the game real.
Yeah, I mean, and to your point, the Breeders' Cup has now had their rules changed because of those tentacles getting in there through this little fiefdom. And anyway, I'm with you. I think you said it well. Speak out. Email us. You know, my email, you can get me at raworDie1@gmail.
Yeah, I mean, my conclusion is, you know, I brought you guys together again because I didn't want to approach this. I mean, me and Nisan kind of buried it, you know, and I'm at the Kentucky Derby. I'm hosting 32 people. Guy gets a drink thrown on his face, you know. Todd and Judy. I mean, it was a horrific scene, you know. And again, I said things that I don't think I would regret, you know. But I got some vulgar things sent to me, and that negativity is just not good. So I just don't want it around me. I just don't want Jonathan in my vicinity. If he's in my vicinity, I will leave, you know. And Peter the same. This thing where they want to bridge they want to bridge something. Again, it only goes back to Nisan. You know, if they really want to think about what they've done, but you know, that's kind of like we're asking for a lot, right? So we're not going there. We want it to be positive. We had a great positive experience for 2 days, and then all hell broke loose. So don't want that in the future. Stay out of my way. I'll stay out of your way. You know, we're gonna continue to support the sport. You know, you want to be vocal. And, you know, it's going to be looking forward to the summer, looking forward to the Breeders' Cup, and you're alive for the $1 million bonus, and we're going to try to get it live as well. And the McGoey brothers are a great story. There's a lot of good things going on in horse racing.
And I think to just say one other thing, I mean, you two guys, too, are just two of the most, you know, honest, hardworking, like, solid human beings. Like, so solid. And that's what even irritates me more, is that it's almost like a character assassination on you two, in a subtle way, by these little digs that they make, and then throwing this investigation. You guys do so much, and you donate money to charities. You dedicate time for helping the kids. I mean, we both coach together, younger, but you know, still continue to do these things, mentoring people. Nisan does a ton of you know, through entrepreneurs and all these other programs, you know, and his family, you know, does a lot as well. So it's just one of those things where it'd be really nice, you know, to celebrate great human beings. And I think that, you know, you guys have a skill set too, which even makes the story better, but we'll just keep kicking ass, man. And I think that's, you know, that's what will be the proof that, you know, that we're, you know, the karma's there, the work's there, and, you know, the horses, you know, it's up to the divine and, you know, and, you know, everything else. But anyway.
Thanks for putting this together. Looking forward to our YouTube channel.
We're going to have some fun. It's going to be a good year. We're going to make a lot of noise. Thanks, Todd and Judy, for being here too. I know it's probably not, you know, your first choice to come and talk about a fight on the Derby, but it's nice to have somebody that was there that could say, because this guy can exaggerate sometimes, but clearly he did not, based on what you said. And, you know, we appreciate your time, and we'll probably see you guys at Del Mar, or maybe this weekend at San Diego. So,
Thank you.
yeah. But anyway, Christian Hellmers, Keep it raw or die trying. Catch you later.